Welcome to the Life Plus God podcast. My name is Alyssa Robinson. I'm your host, and today I am here with Reverend Doug Meyer. Welcome back, Doug.
Hey, it's been a while.
I know, it's been a long time. I gave all of the pastors a nice little summer break.
Okay.
Had some guests
It wasn't just
come
me?
on. No, it was everybody.
Good. Oh, I
so
feel better about
I
myself
had
now.
Daniel, and he hadn't been in here in a couple of months.
Yeah.
We rearranged the studio.
Looks
and
good. Looks sharp.
It's so welcome back.
Thank you.
Into your favorite room. in
I know.
church.
I'm not afraid of it.
I know you're one of the only people who's like, yeah, let's do another podcast. Let's talk about it.
Bring it.
Everybody else is scared, like I'm putting them in the hot seat or something.
Bless their little hearts.
Yeah.
They'll come along.
Yeah. Okay, so Doug, today our question is, who am I?
Man.
So
That's
who
a great
am
question.
I, Doug? Tell me.
Who am I? Who am I? Where do I start? Give me a little more than who am I.
Well, okay. So today we're going to do kind of a recorded example of introspection and contemplation.
Okay.
Which is something that I think that we would both agree is very important in our faith journey, in our personal journey, like going to more and more self-awareness, maybe trying to get to self-actualization someday,
Maybe.
a better understanding of who we are and
what we're all about.
what we're about. Yeah. And I really think that, man, this can help us in so many ways. It can help us in our faith. It can help us in our relationships. It can help us in the way that we perceive what's happening around us in the world. This introspection is so needed.
It's everything about everything.
Yeah. So we're kind of going to set an example here and share some stuff about ourselves.
Man,
and
let's do it.
our journeys, because I think that you and I have both gone on different journeys of introspection and self-awareness. I think that you've been on this path longer than I have.
Well, everybody has their own.
Yeah, and so I just want to talk about what is this thing that everybody's talking about is self-awareness, and why does it matter, and who cares?
I love it. And
So
I
maybe
wouldn't
we'll
have said
do-
I love it years ago. I would
Yeah.
have said years ago, I'm terrified, leave me alone, go away. But now, I don't know. It's kind of just this fuel that is a part of my everyday life.
Yeah. Who am I? Let's jump right in.
Okay.
What does knowing thyself have to do with our faith and relationship with God?
I think it might have a lot or it might not have very much at all to do with that. Knowing oneself is, I think somewhere in there is personal choice of deliberate, intentional work of scratching past kind of some layers that we all do every day, just kind of as part of survival. But it depends on the God part. I think depends on, like, those are not mutually dependent. You cannot have a concept of God and still do self-discovery. So for some people, self-discovery will include, I think, some God wanderings, and then that might open other pathways. But I think we both know plenty of people for whom all of the associations that we assume go with God, church, faith, prayer, sin, guilt, all that, that's just not a part of their MO. But, I think everybody, regardless of faith, can have an opportunity of self-discovery.
Yeah. Well, and the way that I see it in terms of faith is part of my belief system is I do believe that we were created in God's image. And I believe that the divine dwells within each and every single person. And I would even extend that to my dog.
Oh, heck yeah.
Divine. I really believe that all beings, all living beings have a soul, and that we are all a part of this beautiful creation story and this image of who God is. And as an extension of that, I feel like the more we understand ourselves and the more that we are willing to, like you said, scratch the surface and understand our dark side, our good side of how we react in certain situations, and trying to put these pieces together to become the best versions of ourselves that we can, I think that the more we learn about ourselves, the more we could potentially be learning about God.
Yeah, I could live with that. I think I forget Genesis early on where God breathed God's breath into creation. I like the imagery of that we all have, that God breath in us, and that we're creating partners, and that there is so much. We are much more complex than I think we are able to get our heads around. Whether that's are we spiritual beings? Are we energized beings? Are we, I think that we don't allow ourselves to fully imagine the possibilities. I think we just live in this little cocoon or safe structure, but the power that is within each of us to be our full selves, I think would blow us away if we ever really tapped into it.
I also think a lot of people don't have the luxury of sitting around and contemplating, that's a privileged place to be.
Absolutely.
There are people who are working multiple jobs, who are just trying to stay afloat. And not just that, there are people who have a job that isn't at a church, that they're not encouraged to spend time in meditation and prayer and contemplation and introspection.
No, you're right.
And then they come home at the end of the day and they've got kids to wrestle and all of these things going on that I am a very privileged person to get to sit around staring at my navel and contemplating on the way that divine energy presents itself,
Yeah, and a lot of people would say, what the hell? That's not even... do something, contribute to the world, right? And be serious about whatever it is you're doing. So I get that. I think it is a divine luxury, a privileged luxury, whatever it is. But I get that. But the more you do it, to me, the less it feels like a luxury, and it seems like more of a sustaining requirement.
Yeah, and it just.
I wish everybody, I don't care what your task is,
say.
Somehow could be gifted. 15, 30 minutes a day of contemplation time.
Yeah.
And I think it would alter who they are.
Imagine in our culture if we taught contemplation in school so that it was a class that little kindergartners and first graders were taking. And I think we would be a kinder world. I think we'd be a more creative world. I think we would we would raise up better listeners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's do some defining.
Okay.
When we're talking about contemplation, self-awareness, self-actualization type stuff, what are we really talking about here? I think those are buzzwords, but what do we mean?
Yeah.
I'm asking you because I'm not sure that I know.
Well, I think vocabulary is an interesting thing, right? I mean, you can pull any of these up on, psychology.com or Psychology Today or whatever. But to me, at the heart of it is intentionality about pursuing who I am, asking questions, all the who, what, where, when, why, hows, and taking multiple layers. I forget now exactly who used to do this exercise, but would be at any situation, ask yourself why 5 times. Why, and answer that, then say why. Do things that purposely take you past what most of us have as a 1 or 2 layer question barrier to go, further in. Most of us aren't conditioned, that's just not something we do. It's, like you said earlier, that's not taught in school or anywhere. And some of us even have a resistance level. Like if you poke past, this layer, I'm shutting down, pulling away, getting angry, or whatever it is. So I guess the easiest way for me to explain it is what started it for me. Can we go back there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was thinking about this last night, and I have a recollection. I got introduced to this way before I was capable of handling it. When I was either a junior or senior in college, I was, as a part of my undergraduate degree in religion, in these what we would now call life groups, but we didn't call it them back then. It was some required academic 1 hour credit small group time. And this therapist person would come in and ask us probing questions that I really do think now, I don't think I was the only one that was not mature enough to handle that kind of contemplation. The other people would kind of BS away around it. But I can recall it was every Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I would get in a funk and I would get real protective. And, my whole MO back then was more about why do you want to know me that well? Because I don't even know who I am. And I was suspicious of other people's motives. So I couldn't see how that would benefit me. Okay, now, fast forward, I think I don't know, I just BS my way through that. And, earlier, and even now at times, I can give people a pretty good canned answer, which is basically my way of giving them the Heisman. Just, step back. I don't trust you with this information. I trust you with this information, Alyssa. Okay, so fast forward. Doing life, and it's, I've had chronicled episodes of depression and this, that, and the other. And basically, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, my life just crashed. In a series of 6 months, I was released from my responsibilities as pastor at this big, tall steeple church in Plano, where I thought I was Superman, God's right-hand guy, big super helper. Everybody knew me. Everybody loved me. 3 months later, my wife said, yeah, I'm done with this gig as well. And so somewhere in that moment, I had the aha. I remember making a conscious choice on a Monday morning to call. First, I called my physician and said, I think we need to talk. All the conditions are ripe for me to be depressed, and I want to do life now differently. There was like this moment, and I don't know what or why, that I woke up that morning saying, it's time to do this differently. So I went and had an appointment with her, got on antidepressants. The next phone call I made was to one of my best buddies and said, hey, I need a therapist. I want a therapist who will call my BS. And so within, 48 hours, I started seeing this guy named Tom, who was fantastic. And in his office, I said, I want to do the rest of my life differently. I want to have new and different experiences where I'm held accountable, I tell the truth, I'm vulnerable. I had a whole intentional checklist. I don't even know that I knew what I was asking for. And I said, I'm really good at BSing and lying my way through this, and I've done that to, numerous counselors before. And he said, all right, buckle up. And so that started a multi-year process that was helped along by therapy and being asked questions and being good therapists have good memories and they take notes, and so they can remember from appointment to appointment. So as I look back on it now, I don't know if this is either how seriously screwed up I was or how ambitious he was, but I had, for the first 2 months, appointments 3 times a week.
Oh, wow.
I know. And then I went from there to 2 a week, then 1 a week. And I look back at it now and I'm like, holy crap, how did I? A, how did I do that? How did I afford to do that? But it just, after about the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, bring it. Let's do it.
You wanted the crash course.
Yeah. Well, I wanted, it was new. It was a total new way of doing life for me, which was so refreshing and at times both emotionally terrifying, but freeing.
It's like drinking from a fire hose.
It was, yeah. It just blasted me away.
Yeah.
So that started it, and it hadn't stopped since. The intensity ebbs and flows sometime.
Yeah.
But no, I'm all about, wondering. I used to call it wondering and wandering.
You still call it that. I've heard you call it that.
Do I?
On multiple, yeah.
And it's because it's kind of safe. I think I grew up in a very black and white world, both just how you do life, how you do faith, and that was discouraged. So once somebody opened the other door that said, hey, you can go over here and wander all you want, I was like a kid in a playground. Bring it. And it was safe and it was affirmed, and it was affirmed myself for doing it and was energized from it. It wasn't at all, I didn't, all the old stuff I would have felt, guilt and shame and thou shalt not, and you're less than if you do, and you're a sinner, and just piles of BS. That was gone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and one of the things that you said at the very beginning is where this started to, or a practice that you got to, I should say, was asking yourself why at least 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I'm thinking about what is self-awareness, what is this journey to understanding yourself, it's one of the things that I learned in Enneagram is learning how to non-judgmentally observe yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so difficult to do because we get caught up in our default settings. We get triggered by something. Our tempers flare. We get caught up in the emotional reaction to whatever we're experiencing in the moment. But what leads to self-awareness is being able to pull yourself out of that, watch yourself from above as if you're watching a movie, and say, why did I react that way?
Yeah.
This wasn't a big deal. Why did I, lash out like that? Why?
But to get to that point, what you or I or others have to do was go over the mountain or get past what had been the previous barrier of our immediate self-judgment of anger is bad or da-da-da is wrong.
You have to be curious about yourself.
And that was somehow these guardrails that somebody had put on us to modify or change or affect our behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we adapted those and adopted them. And so we would immediately, if I lost my temper, that's a bad thing. Little boys don't holler cuss words or blah, blah, blah. And so rather than, like you said, I love that imagery of kind of stepping above ourselves and going, man, Doug, what tripped that? And thinking about it, but then not feeling any guilt or shame.
Right. Exactly.
And going, wow.
And that's the non-judgmental part of it and that is so difficult to do. It feels almost robotic sometimes to just observe yourself like you're a scientist in a lab.
Maybe we do that just out of preservation because it's so out of our wheelhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because normally previously we would do X behavior that we had deemed inappropriate or wrong or somebody had. And so then we would alter our behavior and quickly reset and go on. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you can now live into your whatever it is, that moment, observe it, and sometimes I like to ask the question, wonder what I was supposed to learn from this.
Yeah.
And in that, just keep going and not spend countless hours wondering and worrying about what you think more or less of me because of what I just did. Mm. It just is.
Well, and I think for us to get into any of this at all, there is a popular therapeutic phrase going around right now talking about your shadow work, doing your shadow work. And in a nutshell, this just means exploring the dark side of you. What are the negative aspects? And I think that where this has to start, so you mentioned in your story, you got to a point that you were like, I want the rest of my life to be different. Mm-hmm. Before you got to that point, what was the mask that you were wearing to protect yourself from the world? What was your coping mechanism?
I think I had a couple, but I think they're all related. Everybody's buddy, super friendly. Oh man, but on my terms. I would be real engaged in your life, but I always redirected your questions away from me back to you. People pleaser, a dysfunctional people pleaser in that I would be what you needed me to be, not who I was. So, and again, but it was all within a very tightly choreographed vein. And I was very guarded about who I would be around. I was very guarded about what I would talk about my life because it was all, hey, I'm a pastor. I'm just a good old God-fearing, God-loving husband, and I've got 3 kids. And so, I just all American, squeaky
Yeah,
clean.
look at my happy little life.
Happy little life.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't really need to look over here at my pornography addiction. Don't, look away, look away.
Yeah.
But by constructing my life and the mask, what you would see is, man, he just is a really nice guy.
Mm.
And I wouldn't give you an opportunity to see me unhappy or angry or sad. In the days when she would say this, I would resent the hell out of it, but I would come home from work and leave the mask in the car and get home and be exhausted and out of words and grumpy and short-tempered. And my wife would say, wonder what it would look like if you just brought home, this is like her phrase, the Doug that's at work, and let that be the Doug at home.
Mm.
And of course, that would just trip me all over. I would get mad that, you don't know what you're talking about. And,
You don't even love me for who I am.
yeah. And I was I don't know. I was drinking my own Kool-Aid. But she was right, because I was, charming at work and a turd at home. So
my mask, man,
mm-hmm.
it was.
Yeah, I want to hear about yours.
Yeah. My mask was strength. And I kept people at a distance, and I was very guarded as well, but for very different reasons. I would never call myself a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
I was the you can't hurt me. I don't care enough about you for you to hurt me. You know?
Yeah.
And that's what it was strength. It was an impenetrable armor that you cannot get through.
Because maybe you thought that was what a woman your age was supposed to be? Or that would serve you best?
I'm not sure why. And so maybe I need to do some more work on that. But it's hard because a lot of people, when they talk about their shadow work, they're working their way back to some sort of childhood wound where they can see, okay, I see where all of these coping mechanisms started to kick off.
Yeah.
I think I had a pretty fairy tale childhood for the most part. I really don't have any complaints. There was some bullying that happened in middle school that was really hard on me.
Yeah.
To the point that, and I think that even at the time I minimized it, and that's when I started putting on that armor of it's okay, I'm fine, everything's fine. Well, my mom and I have had conversations about that time in my life, and she was like, Alyssa, we were so worried about you. You were not talking. You were going into your room and shutting down. You were crying all the time. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember it that way. But I was bullied so badly, and I didn't know, by girls that I thought were my friends. That was that. And, girl bullies are a different breed.
They are a whole nother breed. Yep.
But I had a little group of friends that kind of dragged me along and used me as the butt of the joke. And
because you were probably anxious to be included, you went along.
Yeah, I went along with it, and I would pretend that I was in on the joke.
Because that makes it not hurt as bad.
That's when I developed self-deprecating humor and just trying to make it seem like, y'all can't hurt my feelings. It's it is funny. My body is funny looking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
I get that big time. I was such the anti-jock. And moderately, probably somewhat effeminate. And I desperately wanted to be an athlete because in junior high and high school, those were the esteemed people on campus, right? But I was the anti-athlete. And so I went full on the opposite way and just really embraced band nerdom 100%. But I would do the same self-deprecating humor about, I can't do this, or this. So I, but look at me. I can sure play the trumpet really well. But all the while being hurt really deeply because the thing I said I couldn't is what I most desperately wanted to be, So, I get that.
Yeah, and I was not popular by any means. I wouldn't say I was, a complete dork.
Yeah.
But I was not popular, and my reaction to that, I think that I wanted to be popular. I didn't understand why I wasn't. And so my reaction to that was, well, I'm going to hate those popular girls. Like they're, oh my gosh, they're so
Mean
shallow.
girls,
They're so
bitches.
shallow. They don't care. Like I don't want to be anything like them. Oh, how boring, to only care about your clothes and your hair and your makeup, and to be pretty. Ugh, they don't even have a personality, and that was part of the armor that I was putting on.
Yeah.
I had to get past that phase because that was just an example of a bullied kid turning into a bully, as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So those are things that I had to unlearn of like, this isn't, you don't react to being bullied by bullying other people. And I think that that's something that I still get caught up in sometimes. When I feel like I'm being wronged, I get a chip on my shoulder.
You can just pull out punk Alyssa.
And you better not get in my way if I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible, childish mentality, but I still get caught up in it. And then I have to pull myself out of it again and go into that observation and say, why are you throwing a toddler temper tantrum right now?
What's not going the way you thought it should? And what aren't you getting that you think you need?
Oh, gosh, those masks we wear. And I will say there is a freedom to we all have a mask.
Oh.
And it's not always a bad thing. I think that we have coping skills for a reason. When we're going through something really hard, sometimes I have to pull out that armor and put it back on when I'm going through a really tough time just to make it through. And I'm not saying all coping skills are negative, but some of mine can be more destructive to other people than others. But we all have this mask that we wear. And I think that's the beginning of the shadow work, and understanding our true selves is, okay, how am I faking my way through this?
Yeah.
What mask am I wearing?
Well, yeah, because we don't ever, I think, really throw away or destroy the mask. I think we just kind of retire it.
Yeah.
But it's always near enough that we know how to access it.
But when you finally realize that you're wearing it, and because I think that for the first 30 years of my life, I didn't know I had it on. And then I had the opportunity to take it off. And I've shared my divorce story a million times. Y'all are bored of it. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing again. But for me, the turning point was my divorce. And I also happened to be at the same time learning about the Enneagram. And so a coping skill for me was to do a deep dive into the Enneagram to try and better understand myself, better understand my husband, better understand all of the people in my life, because
what the hell just happened to me
was making sense to me.
I get that.
And so I probably jumped into it in a bit of an unhealthy way, but it was kind of a safety blanket for me.
Well, I think even that little simple phrase you just used, making sense, I think that when we allow ourselves to stop and to do whatever mental exercise we need to do we're about making sense every day about everything.
There has to be a reason.
What's the reason? Why did I do that? Why didn't I do that? What could I have done differently?
When I had learned I was wearing this mask at the same time that I was going through this divorce, I was like, have I had my mask on my whole marriage? Have I been exuding strength, and have I had my armor on and my guard up for this whole relationship without even realizing it? And I think the answer was yes, I did.
Yeah, of course the answer is yes. And the person who your ex knew and then began to unknow was mask on, mask off Alyssa. And not, this is not a commentary on him or you, but we all do that in all of our relationships. And it's when we begin to trust people, when we allow them and encourage them to take their mask off and we take our mask off, that then I think magic happens in relationships.
Yeah. And some people love us with our mask on.
Oh, they would prefer us.
Yeah. I have friends who, and they know me so well, and they love me mask on, mask off. But one of my girlfriends says, when you put your armor on, I feel like I'm protected by Alyssa. Nothing can hurt me.
Yeah.
She's like, I feel strength from your strength. And she's like, I see it happen. I see when you're putting that on, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, no, I get that. I have some, especially guy buddies who prefer just, hey, let's go to the bar and have some drinks, tell some jokes, watch a bit of a football game and call it good. versus, hey, let's sit and have a drink and talk about our feelings and what's going on and where we could be closer and what are we afraid of. And, I get that. Because you can't be full on, deep probe all the time. That's exhausting.
Yeah. Well, let's do some more deep.
Bring it. Yeah.
Deep.
I'm geared up for
This
it.
is going to be an exhausting one, I guess.
That's all right.
When you started doing your shadow work and you realized you were wearing a mask, what were some of those negative aspects of yourself that you had to face, and how did you face them?
That I wasn't always honest. I didn't like that. That I never named things like lying or dishonest. I just protected or created environments that felt safe. I had just nice words that kind of came to that. That I had a temper. Grew up in a family where the only person who was allowed to have a temper was our dad, and it was very clearly stated that strong feelings of any sort were not allowed. I had a lot of shame around my pornography addiction, and that was. For the longest time, I couldn't even form the word pornography. Like I would begin to say the word, and it was like I was learning English for the first time. I couldn't construct the vowels and the consonants all the right way. Just being less than, because I had so convinced myself and tried so hard to convince everybody else that I was all that in a bag of chips. You name it, I'm there for you. I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. Yep. Super uber confident. All the while, I was not. I really was. At times, there's a pretty strong introvert chord in me. Shy. I both at times can thrive in a group of people, and then other times want to get the hell out of there. And again, thought I was supposed to be super dad, super husband, and somewhere enmeshed in all the divorce talk was strong feelings from my ex about the times I wasn't. And man, that was super hard. I probably spent a good year trying to prove that wrong versus hearing it for her experience. And even contemplating, might there be a kernel of truth there?
That's hard.
It was. And, I look back at it now, and I think it's a really good thing that I went right into therapy. Because I don't think prior to that, I had the emotional strength to go through all that. And I wasn't in any kind of group that was affirming or sustaining or encouraging that. A lot of men aren't. A lot of men are not in other groups or even have one buddy who you can sit down and just be, full on honest with. Yeah. Especially if it's an honest aspect of a fear or a vulnerability statement. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah, I think mine was a little bit different than yours. It sounds like you were a very likable person who got along with others and made others feel good, but you had to learn how to love yourself. For me, it was the exact opposite. I adored myself. I loved myself. I thought I was the greatest.
Yeah.
And then when I started doing this work, I realized how much I had hurt people. And it was devastating to me because that was never my intention. But the way that I functioned in this world, things that I had considered a point of pride, I can't tell you how many people in my life have told me I'm intimidating. And I kind of took it as a badge of honor. But then what that really means is I make people uncomfortable, and not necessarily in a way that they should be uncomfortable, like in a way that people are afraid of me. They don't
Yeah.
want to come to me. They don't want to talk to me.
But did you do that maybe because it gave you control and power?
I think it kept people at a distance.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have the opportunity to have my feelings hurt. I didn't have the opportunity
No.
to have meaningful connections that could potentially fall apart in the future.
Well, yeah, because I can imagine younger Alyssa going, by God, I'm not gonna have those crappy feelings again.
Yeah.
And here's how I'm gonna make sure of that.
Yeah. And so for me to be doing this work and look back on my tendencies to steamroll people, I'm a very opinionated person.
Are you serious?
And when I have a strong opinion, I'm outspoken, and I'm actually like really open to other people's opinions, but I speak as if my opinion is fact. I don't mean to, but that's just the way that my thoughts come out.
Yeah.
And so I think I've just shut so many people down unintentionally. So steamrolling is a big problem for me. Also, stepping in and taking leadership where I shouldn't. There is, in the Enneagram work that I've done, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. And one of the things they say about 8s is when there is a power vacuum,
They'll
8s will fill it.
Yeah.
Automatically, default setting. So if I walk into a room and I feel like it's being mismanaged or a meeting isn't being run effectively or whatever it is, I have to stop myself from taking it over. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, I can fix this. I can do this
Y'all
better,
are lucky. I am here to help y'all fix this.
And the problem with that is, there's so many problems with that. But one of the issues that I had, it took me so long to recognize that, because in many work environments in the United States, that is valued. That is something that I am praised for. Alyssa is the person that we go to when something's broken. She's going to fix it. She's
fixer.
the clutch player. If an account is going wrong, put Alyssa on it.
Yeah, I get that.
And so another thing that I saw as a point of pride, but how many rooms have I walked into where I didn't need to do that? I didn't need to take over, and I took something away from somebody that they had worked really hard on, and maybe we're just learning, or maybe they just do things differently than I do. And I thought, no, this isn't the way you do it. And I took it from them.
And you're lucky I'm here because I can now fix this.
Yes. And then I would get praised for it.
Yeah.
Alyssa turned it around,
Oh, yeah.
So there are all of these negative aspects of myself that I had to face. And it was like this moment of your life flashing before your eyes and me re-examining every encounter I've ever had. Another thing is I am not conflict averse. I don't seek out conflict, but I'm not afraid of it. And so it takes a lot for something to feel like someone's fighting with me, because I enjoy healthy debate and things like
sparring.
that. The number of people who have told me that we had a conflict that I didn't even realize was a conflict. and it makes them feel small. And it makes them feel diminished in some way that I didn't even realize. And so it's looking back on all of these moments in my life and it just thinking, oh my gosh, how did I make that person feel when I said that? Having that thought having never crossed my mind before.
Right.
So I had 30 years of interactions of like, oh, that's not what I thought it was.
Yeah. And see, all of this that we were even doing right now, I think is a part of the self-discovery process where it's okay, not only just okay, it's healthy to go, man, here's when I was not at my best. Here's when I was destructive or toxic or less than. And instead of running from it, going, wonder what I might learn from this. What can I do to not repeat that? What can I do? How can I enable people I trust to hold me accountable when they see me erring into unhealthy behaviors to, thump me on the nose or something.
Well, and it's also helpful that once your shortcomings are revealed to you, you start to see them all the time. And so something that I wouldn't even noticed was a personality trait of mine, I'm now on the lookout for those red flags in my characteristics.
Yeah.
And also, I had a group of friends, like you said, that were doing Enneagram at the same time as me. So now they know the red flags in my characteristics. They know what it looks like when Alyssa is not being her healthiest,
Right.
you know, and they can call me out on that. And
Well, and I think that's a really important part. Like if people are thinking about taking this on, I think you need people.
can't do shadow work alone.
No,
It's too scary.
You got to have a tribe or a village or whatever you want to call it. You know, for me, it was all of my, and continues to be my recovery work friends. And even in that, there is a collective of mutual trust giving. You know, we're going to be in this together. And it's, I will be honest. It used to be, I'll be honest if you're honest. But really it has to be, I'll just be honest. And I struggle with that still at times. You know, a year or so ago in Renew, I had really fallen it, which is our recovery group here at church. Anyway, I had kind of managed over my addictive behavior from pornography to self-medicating with alcohol. And after, I forget, a certain amount of time, I realized one day, I have a drink every day. I don't think I've not had a drink in a lot, you know. And I was really nervous to share that in our recovery group because I thought I was supposed to be the recovery hero, you know, the recovery role model group leader.
I'm the leader of this group.
I'm the leader.
I'm the example.
And
everybody follow my model. You know?
Exactly. And then the more I thought about that, it's like, okay, so what I'm modeling is continuing to lie about my unhealthy behaviors and not trust, which are all totally opposite of what we say our values are. So again, you know, once I kind of came clean with the group, one of the guys in the group even said, well, so you think you're an alcoholic? I'm like, oh, no, come on. I got real offended. And, you know, you have to be able to be offended and not be offended. You have to be able to be offended and know that person, and that's earned in a way. You don't just, you know, fall off the truck and get that the first night. Says that because you've given permission to say that and you've said it to them and they care about you. But yeah, if you're going to tackle this kind of behavior or, you know, introspection, I don't know how you know, I mean, because we live in it, right? I don't know how people who are just civilians out in the world, unless you go to a therapist. I know some men. There's a guy here in Flower Mound that has men's group that, you know, people pay good money. Men
like
pay good
group
money.
Therapy.
Yeah, kind of, but it's only men, and they go like 12 weeks at a time, and they have a topic that they all come in and scratch out. So I don't know. You know, otherwise, just go to a 12-step group and say, hey, I want to start a 12-step group. And I don't know. I mean, most all of us could benefit from that anyway.
Yeah. So. Well, okay. So we've talked a little bit about the dark side, the shadow work. In your work on self-awareness, is there anything that you learned about yourself that are positive things that you didn't know before you started doing this work? Something that you learned to love about yourself? So
I learned that it's okay to not have all the answers. So that created a lot of bandwidth to not have to have an answer.
Well, that frees you from so many things.
A lot of stuff, yeah. To not be responsible for everybody else's feelings. And I still struggle with that one a lot, that I'm somehow magically in charge of, you know, in whatever setting.
Oh my gosh, I'm so the opposite. That's so funny. I'm like, I don't care about anyone's feelings, and my work is to care more about other people's feelings.
And see, mine is not. But see, here's the sideways dysfunction of that is I worry about your feelings because somehow I am connected to, I'm in charge of your feelings. You're only going to feel good if I'm here.
Yeah.
Golly, what an ego.
And for me, it's like, why are you feeling that way? I wouldn't feel that way. Like what?
Oh, that's fun how we're so
that's
different.
Also ego.
Yeah. So
I'm the model here. Why are you upset? Why are you crying?
Be more like me. So one of the things that I think I like this. I affirm this about me because I think it's a good thing. But but it's also real connected to what part of how I was when I was dysfunctional was my ability to be present when they're hurting, and to not be afraid of what in the past had been big, hard, scary, traumatic kind of situations. Mm-hmm. That they can also be, it can be hard and scary and traumatic, and I can still be present. Mm-hmm. And, over the last couple of years, I've been really close to a couple of people here in the church who have died. And just sitting with them, holding their hand, stroking their head, talking, listening, or just not doing any of that. I appreciate the sacredness of that moment. Mm.
And it's to be able to be fully present in those moments, it is a gift. It is something that not everybody is capable of. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's a good thing to love about yourself.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Every now and then I kind of feel like I could be like somebody's like a death whisperer or something.
You would make a really great death doula.
Is that what the word is?
Which is an actual job, yeah, to be a death doula.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For me, like I said, loving myself was never an issue. I adored myself, mm-hmm. and I thought I was the greatest, mm-hmm. and if anything, it was bringing a dose of humility into your life and not having such a huge ego. But one of the things that I had to learn to love about myself was it's okay. Well, maybe not learn to love about myself, but learn was an option. Is it's okay to just blend in, and you can just participate. You don't have to be in charge. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. And you can just be. And you don't have to, you can step into any room and just be. You don't have to
be the shooting
present
star.
yourself in any way.
I share that with you, and I wonder if that's what it was about our upbringing that either we affirmed ourselves, something of being on and being. I think there's a little bit of performer in us, and a little bit of it's affirming. There are sideways messages of people who are like that to be, the shining star in the room.
I think I had youngest child syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Look at me,
precocious little scamp.
Just by showing up in the room, everybody loves me. Yeah. And so and I can see that being kind of anti-8 work because, that means you're not doing that which you're somehow naturally wired to do. Mm. I don't need to fix this right now for this group.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they're going to be better off if I don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
And one of the things that I loved about myself back then, and I do continue to love about myself, but I do it differently now after having done some work, is my fearlessness in standing up for others. Mm. I am never afraid to voice my opinion. I am never afraid of who is in the room. I am never afraid of how many people are there. If I see somebody being mistreated, I will say something.
Good.
And like I said, I might do it differently now than I did when I was 25. When I was 25, maybe it involved shaming the person who was doing the bullying.
The bully.
Yeah, and trying to embarrass them, turn the tables, give them a taste of their own medicine. I felt like it was my job to bring justice to that situation and immediately make the person who was bullying feel bad and the person who's being bullied feel good.
So you're kind of cast in your own like little Marvel superhero movie, aren't you?
I guess I am.
Yeah. You are.
And now it's different I will stand up for somebody, but I try to do it in a positive way of lifting them up. If someone's putting them down, lifting them up and making them feel like they're important and disagreeing with someone.
That you don't have to do their work for them. You can be their cheerleader standing up for themselves because probably they walk away from that wiser, richer, smarter. Mm-hmm. Than by having you told them the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And I have learned to ask the question, do you want help?
Yeah.
Or do you want to handle this on your own? Most of the time, people want to handle it on their own. 25-year-old Alyssa
Even when
did
you're
not,
right there with them.
25-year-old Alyssa did not ask that
Ungrateful.
question, you know?
Some people are so ungrateful.
Yeah. They're like, do you know what kind of power you could have behind you?
Use it for good.
No, but I think that it is important for us. Like I said, we are created in the image of God. There is so much to love within each of us. And some people do struggle with loving themselves and seeing value in themselves. And every single person is lovable. And I think that is part of this self-work, is exploring the ways in which you are lovable. It's not selfish. It's not arrogant. It is good. It's good
the
work.
word that I embrace all the time is worthiness.
Yes.
I am worthy of this. You are worthy. We're, God's beloved, worthy children. Because somehow I guess I had in the back of my head somehow to be liked, you had to earn to be liked. And I think you can be liked. I can be liked just because I am, just because I breathe. I don't have to have done something for you or jumped high or ran fast or whatever. That we're all worthy. We're all beloved people. And, I think to do all of this with other people, I don't know. I think it's a real blessing. I mean, you're right. When we started, you were talking about what a privileged thing we get to do by doing this. And it really is. It's, not that I'm apologizing to people who don't. I would love to figure out ways to create environments, but I think you got to want to do it in the first place. I never signed up for it until I kind of got like right on the edge. Like I heard this great illustration the other day about all of this, and it goes kind of like this. It's about comparing the pathway to self-discovery to archaeology, and that we decide to kind of do our own internal dig. And, if you understand archaeology at all, part of going to a work site is to uncover, right? To dig up. And so the living of our lives is the adding the dirt on these events in our life. So if you're doing personal growth work, you are out in the field digging and coming upon said artifact, right? And taking that artifact out, naming it, what was it from, how did it get here? But here's the crazy caveat in all this. So you're doing all that work and you found that, we'll call it a treasure, but the dirt to get to that got displaced. Oh, and unfortunately, it got put on top of some other areas that you need to excavate and work. So all of our life is walking around, basically through our backyard, digging up holes and going, oh, so that's where that is. Oh, that was that traumatic, date after prom. Or, oh, that was that miscarriage. Or, oh, that was that fired, when I got, and you got to want to do it. And you got to, it's exhausting.
Yeah, you can't force introspection.
No, I think that's a huge fail. Like just when you said that phrase, I was thinking, golly. I think that's where when I started this, I talked about in college, that was kind of what that was about. And some self-protective element in me knew to not cooperate, that it felt emotionally manipulative or something.
Yeah.
And I wasn't anywhere near mature enough to handle all of whatever I could have uncovered. So, yeah, no, we're not going to go there.
We've been focusing on ourselves this whole time of how have we done this work? What did it look like? How did your journey to self-discovery impact your relationship with others? And how do you do relationships differently after having learned about yourself?
That's a good question. Let's think about this. So I, in my collective of relationships, I have a pretty good home base between Wendy and then Wendy, by the way, is my wife, and other people who are like-minded in this. So that takes up a pretty good hunk of time. Then I get permission to kind of be introspective as a pastor, and it doesn't seem weird or out of place. Just in my role of going and checking on people in hospital or nursing home or funeral home or wherever, that's okay. Where at times it feels strange still, would be with my adult kids who have a different understanding of me as dad. My daughter is prone to use the phrase, "Don't use that pastor bull with me."
Mm.
Whenever I'll talk, throw out a phrase about, well, wonder what else could be true, or wonder, she's like, nope, not doing that with
That's
you.
like my dad, don't therapize
Don't
me.
even, don't, nope. And my boys, they just are like, I don't know. Their answer to their shutdown response is just to go to this real masculine, I don't know, which means I don't want to know, and I don't want to talk about it. Let's go fish, something like that. So, and then every now and then you kind of come upon or I come upon people who are like, hey, can you tell me more about this whole recovery thing? Or I'll get random email from rando people in the community who will say, hey, I heard you have a story about this. Could I have a cup of coffee with you and talk? I kind of compare it to like tire kickers or whatever. And about half show up and a half just, they don't. It gets too big. And I get that. I probably blew off a number of people early on. So how about you?
Well, first of all, I had to remove myself from the center of the universe in order to even have a semblance of what relationship looked like with other people. Because it sounds so just ignorant and silly, because it is. It never once crossed my mind before I started doing Enneagram work that people function differently than I do, that they think differently than I do, that they have different motivations than I do. And I had a really tough time understanding other people, because it's what I said before. Why would you do that? I would never do that. What could have possibly motivated you? What were you thinking? And so my thought is, okay, if I wouldn't have done that and our thought process must be the same, then you must be doing it. The only reason I would do that is to manipulate. The only reason I would do that is I'm trying to do a power grab, whatever it is. And so I would put negative intentions on people because I assign my own motivations to others.
You looked at it, you decided, you analyzed it, your answer was the one, and you...
Yeah,
I get it.
I didn't even analyze it because why would you need to?
Well, there wasn't any analysis needed. Oh, it was very obvious. It was very clear.
And so I hadn't realized how much of a hindrance that had been to me my entire life, and how it created this wall between me and others because there was an unwillingness to ask the question, what else could be true?
Yeah.
The pastor BS.
Yeah.
But because I'm like, I know what's true. No,
it's obvious.
It's very clear what the next right thing to do is, and you didn't do it.
Yeah.
So you're doing the wrong thing. And so it took me time to untie those knots and realize, oh, there are people making decisions in this world through the motivation of feeling safe and secure. There are people who are making all of their decisions to avoid conflict. There are people making decisions because they want to be perceived as successful. There are all of these different people with different motivations. My motivation is to not be controlled. So if you make a decision that goes against something that I would make, my first reaction is you're trying to control me in some way, and that's not going to happen, So I would create these negative relationships with people, all based on assumptions of what they're thinking, why they're doing it, all of this stuff that's just ridiculous. And so first, remove myself from the center of the universe and allow for there to be diversity of thought and understanding.
Yeah. Check your assumptions.
And then beyond that, I will say, something that when you were describing these pockets of people that you have, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming to me. That's so overwhelming to me. Yeah. I have 2 friends. 2. I have a lot of acquaintances. I probably just hurt a lot of people's feelings who are like, wait, am I your friend?
Am I one of them?
So for me, to call someone a friend, it really is more like family. When I consider someone as a friend, it's someone who I can say anything to. They come over to my house, I'm not cleaning up. I'm not changing clothes. I'm not going to do anything to be presentable because who cares? They're family. So I have 2 people and then I have my family.
Yeah.
So because one of the things that I learned about myself over time is one of the reasons I have my guard up with people, being vulnerable is very exhausting for me. And it probably is for a lot of people, but to be vulnerable is very much against my nature. I think that some people are more naturally inclined to access vulnerability. I am not. And so I can't pour everything I have into more than 2 people. It's too much for me.
Yeah, no, it's I get that.
And so my only focus can be on, okay, these are my 2 friends. These are the people that I'm going to check in on. These are the people that I'm going to want to know everything that's going on at work, everything that's going on with their families. I want to support them. I want to love them. And maybe it's because I'm an extremist of like, when I'm in, I am 200% in. And so it is everything of like, and to imagine doing that with a group of 20 friends, it makes me want to throw up thinking about it.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I get that.
And so I think as a result of that, I'm super close with my family. So those are, let's say 6 to 8 people who really tight with, plus my 2 friends. So I have an inner circle of 10 people that I'm super close with. I'm willing to be vulnerable with. I'm willing to cry in front of. I'm willing to share my true feelings about things. I'm willing to get upset. I'm willing to share my joys with them because sometimes I don't even want to share my joys with other people because I'm like, well, I don't want them to know that, I succeeded in this way. It's messy. And then for people outside of that inner circle, I tend to keep things very surface level of like, I'm friendly. I kind of do what you talked about of like, when people ask me questions about myself personally, I find a way to put it back on them and say, oh, yeah, but like, how about you? Like, what's going on with you? That sort of thing. It's not because I'm hiding. It's because I don't have the energy.
No, that's what I was going to say. I think it's energy conservation.
Yeah.
Because it's a whole lot less taxing to simply kick into listen mode and hear their story and chime in every now and again, right? Versus, doing a full-on vulnerability dump with them, and then you got to listen to their vulnerability dump, and then sometimes when you get all in on somebody else's vulnerability dump, that might have expectations connected to follow-up or this or that, and yeah, it's hard work. I get it.
And so I used to be kind of self-conscious about the fact of like, is it okay that I only have 2 friends? Like, is that normal? Should I be trying to meet more people and make new friends? And every time I start to do it, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Like, this feels like I'm pushing too hard. I'm trying too hard. This doesn't feel natural to me. And so I've just come to the conclusion, I'm a person with a small group of friends, and that's okay.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're never allowed to move away. I've made that very clear to them. And they're not allowed. Yeah. I have a list of things. You're not allowed to do these things.
Well, no, that's good that they all know that. And you have shared expectations.
No, but the biggest thing for me was decentering myself. And man, that was
Do you give like Jacob or other people in your life permission to go, hey, you're doing that thing?
Yeah.
So there's some outward.
Yeah, my partner is also in my inner circle. I should say that.
Okay.
I forgot to mention him. Yeah, he's allowed in. Yeah, I think, and he does it so well, but he's also an 8 on the Enneagram, which you would think like that would never work. 2 8s in a relationship.
Yeah, is that allowed?
It's amazing.
You don't self-destruct or self-kill or
It's incredible because we understand each other's motivations. We understand why he's reacting the way that he is. I understand his thought process of how he came to a conclusion on something. It makes it, we speak the same language.
Yeah. Well, no, and if it works for you.
It also means we have the same blind spots. So that can be a problem as well. if I need to be pulled back sometimes he's quick to be like, no, you are right. That they shouldn't have said
Hey,
that.
maybe we need to call in a third party.
Yeah. So, but I think that I know that he feels comfortable calling me out, and he does it in a very soft, loving way of like, hey, usually it's, hey, do you think you should eat something? But but no, he'll pull me back. Just, I don't even know how to describe it. He does it so well. It feels so natural.
Well, I think in relationships where it does that right there, it feels so natural, because it's so natural. It's not, a moment that then registers in your psyche, and you're like, oh, he's doing that thing. Wendy and I, she's not I'm a 2. I forget what she is.
She's a 7. No, is she?
Maybe.
She told me once, and now I can't remember.
But we use humor a lot, like, and I have to be really careful because I have humor, and then I have biting, hurtful, harmful humor, and especially if there's if I'm humor, and then all of a sudden I'm kind of getting laughs, and it turns into performatory humor at somebody else's expense, and I have done that I think twice with her, and we had a pretty serious talk about don't ever use me as the brunt of your jokes again. And people like me who do that are, not consciously doing it. What we're conscious about is we're getting attention or laughs for doing that. And so I've
one
learned
of
better.
the things I just recognized that he does is if I'm acting out in some way, he'll first say, hey, I have something I want to tell you. And I want to start by telling you that I love you. I'm on your team, and I'm telling you this because I care about you. That immediately takes away all of your defenses of, okay, this is
I'm looking
something
forward
that,
to what you have.
this is something that
trust
he
you
wants
with-
us to work on. And then he'll say, when you said this, it made me feel this way. And I know you don't want me to feel that way. So,
Aww.
and he's like, and so he sees the best in me, and his assumption is, oh, she would have never mean to hurt me. So let's figure out why she said it this way and what she actually meant, and give her a chance to talk through those feelings.
I'm gonna go out with him. Can
I
go out
know,
with
isn't
him?
he the best?
Hey, Jacob, we like you.
Yeah.
She likes you more than I do.
But he's so good, at just diffusing and making you feel valued in this conversation, but also it's important stuff that we need to address.
It helps
I'm like,
him
oh my
communicate
gosh,
clearly what he needs to communicate.
And it gives me the chance to say, oh my gosh, I had no idea it came across that way. That was not my intention at all. I'm so sorry, and then we can move forward in a positive way from there. But just that reminder at the beginning of because if he hadn't given me that forward at the beginning of it and just said,
would you be on guard?
Would you be why did you say it that way? I would have immediately, my go-to emotion is anger. I would immediately been, because you're bugging me. Why? Just something to defend myself and say, you're the one who's the problem. I'm not the problem.
You would be listening already for a response, right? Yeah. I get it.
But,
you think this is going to help people listening to us?
Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people who are listening to this, who are interested in doing self-work, will maybe take some of the questions that we've asked each other and contemplate them for themselves.
Okay.
And maybe if they have a safe person, they can take some of these questions to their safe person and say, hey.
So are you going to put these at the end of the podcast?
I'll put them in the description and say, hey, here are some questions you might want to ask if you're ready to do this work. What are some negative things about me I need to work on? What mask am I wearing? What are some things that I love about myself or that I can learn to love about myself? These are really big questions. And if you have a partner to have this conversation with,
yeah, no, and these are let's say you're going to do that. Here's my recommendation. A question a week or over 2 weeks.
Yeah, don't try to.
Don't do all these one night over a bottle of wine.
I don't know. Some people, that's the way they function.
Well, I know, but every question in one night is what I'm thinking.
It's a lot.
I would kind of ruminate, contemplate, chew on it. Like I said earlier, I think sometimes too we get scared of vocabulary words, of just shadow self and this and that. And so if you can simple it down to a language you can get your head around, what are you hiding behind, or what are you, whatever the phraseology is that you need, I think it makes it a little more approachable.
You could have an entire evening, multiple evening conversation around what mask am I wearing? You are starting to give some advice to people. Are there any helpful resources, tools, or practices that help you stay grounded in your true self and in this work?
Well, just randoms here. I think everybody should have some kind of therapeutic relationship with a professional, and whether or how you can buy it, pay for it, insure it, whatever. I don't know what I'm saying about that, but I mean, I know that's expensive, but it's worth it. Not just your girlfriend or guy friend or whomever over a cup of coffee, but a professional who will help you in that regard. If you have any inkling of dysfunction around the whole arena of recovery, I would find some kind of recovery group, and there are tons
for
now.
every topic you could imagine.
You name it, there are. And if you wonder about some help finding one, call me or email me or something, because that can be a little overwhelming to figure it out. I would look for a place that is a gathering of like-minded people, whether that is a temple, a church, a group of people who like to do and are energized by the same thing. Because I think let's just even say it's people who like water polo or volleyball or, taking care of dogs at an animal rescue, that those are moments, those are doorway moments. And then you have that moment, and then frequently you have the moment after the moment where you've just been energized by doing the thing you like. There's some debriefing that usually includes a meal or a drink and sitting around. And those are like beginnings of moments where people can kind of be their most real self. So
I think that there's a reason that Jesus had so many conversations over a meal.
Oh, yeah.
It disarms us when we're eating and sharing food together and drinks together and everything. There's a layer of vulnerability that we allow out that we don't at other times. And I wonder, I'm sure there has to be studies around that and why that is, but
especially what I would call non-performance meals. You know what a performance meal is,
yes.
Right? When you're all dressed up and it's all about who you are and who's looking at you. So like if you have, to me, the best are moments that you've already been disarmed. Like you're all dirty together, meaning you've all just slept out a barn, or you've all been working at a community garden or something like that. So you don't have this collective net of who's trying to impress anybody. That's off the table. And you're just sitting there in your most honest nest of stinky and dirty and all that. So that distraction is gone, and you have your meal, and usually it takes maybe somebody to, like the conversation goes, and then somebody's going to need to help it turn. And all you have to do is say, use a feeling word. Man, that sounds like that was really scary. Or I bet that made you really angry, or, and then usually just,
magic happens.
Magic happens. Yeah.
Well,
this has been fun.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah. So I hope that y'all can start having these conversations of who am I? Who are you? And from here, oh my gosh, so much good work can begin when we understand ourselves. We didn't even get into the faith part of the conversation, but that's okay.
Another day.
Yeah, this is the life part of the Life Plus God podcast. Yeah. But it can lead into closer relationship with God, a more humble understanding of our Creator, and seeking and curiosity. It opens a lot of beautiful paths. So I hope that y'all will give this work a try.
And don't be afraid of what you might find. No matter what your past life has told you, you are a good and amazing and wonderful person. And whatever you uncover is not going to take that away. And matter of fact, it will just add richness and color and texture and you'll be able to learn from that. And
You are more lovable than you ever knew.
You have no idea.
Thanks, Doug.
Take care.
The Life Plus God podcast is hosted, written, and produced by me, Alyssa Robinson, and sponsored by Treach Memorial United Methodist Church in Flower Mound, Texas. If you live in the Flower Mound area, I invite you to stop by and see if Treach could be your new church family. You can learn more about all of our programs and events at tmumc.org, and I hope to catch you next week for our next episode of the Life Plus God podcast.